Hello, welcome to the next video in our little mini-series whereby we're looking at some of the latest technology that we find on our modern vehicles and how we can take that technology and add it to our older generation motorbikes to give us an improvement in visibility and safety. So what we're going to be doing today is looking at the change that you can make when you go from an incandescent bulb to something like this. Now this is a printed circuit board from Weiser-Technik. This is a single function part, and this has 12 LEDs, automotive LEDs. And in the footage you're about to see, the difference is huge. But to give the incandescent bulb the best chance it's got, there really was no point me doing a comparison with a 15-year-old setup. So on all four corners, I fitted new lenses, these things here. Now these are original BMW ones, they're not cheap, and I've got different colors. So I've put translucent lenses on the front because the later bikes, I think it was about 2009, they started coming with these clear lenses. And on the rear, I fitted the very original amber lenses, again BMW ones. Now the lenses are really important because over time they fade, they go opaque, they get lots of scratches on there, and the lens does an important job of diffusing the light that comes out or comes off of that incandescent bulb, and obviously with these LEDs. So I decided to change all four corners. Now on the two sides of the bike that have the incandescent bulb, what I've also done is I fitted new reflectors. Now again, if you've ever had to replace these are from BMW, you can still buy them. They are jolly expensive. Now bulbs, what I've got is two different sorts. I've got clear Osram 12 volt 10 watt bulbs on the rear with the amber lenses, and I've got the orange color bulbs, again Osram 12 volt 10 watt in the front on that right hand side. Anyway, let me show you some footage because this is really interesting. So now we're looking at the rear of the bike. Just bear in mind that both sides have brand new BMW outer lenses. Over here on your right hand side, there is a new inner reflector, BMW, and a brand new 12 volt 10 watt bulb. So this side is as good as, or as close as we can get it to how it left the factory, brand new. So first of all, let's turn on the side lights like so. Then what we'll do, we'll add in the indicator. On the right hand side, this is what it looks like with that incandescent bulb. We'll turn that off, we'll go to the other side, and you're going to notice already a significant difference. So for this next comparison, the bike is on the center stand and I've placed it against a plain painted matte wall. Now I've actually placed it about 45 centimeters in terms of the distance from the indicator lens to the wall. Now if I turn the ignition on, and bear in mind I've got lighting on in the garage, I'm going to turn it off in a moment. Now on the left hand side, we still have the traditional incandescent bulb. Let's put the indicator on. And that's what the light looks like reflected on the wall. So that's the standard, as it comes from the factory, indicator. Now if I turn that off and I put on the other side, I think you can see there is a significant difference in light output over here with the printed circuit board that has 12 LEDs. The difference is just huge. So for this last comparison, the bike is moved over to the left-hand side of the garage, parked diagonally. The rear of the bike is in fact about 1 meter away from the wall. I've turned the garage lights off. If we then turn the ignition on, and we've now got our side light against the wall, and then we can add in the traditional indicator on the left-hand side. And that is the amount of light output that we can measure and we can capture on the camera. Now if I turn that off, watch carefully, I turn that off and add in the indicator on the other side, you can really see visually just how much more light those Weiser-Technik PCBs produce when the indicator is flashing, and it is really quite significant. So those three clips you've just seen are the best way I found to demonstrate the differences between an incandescent indicator and a PCB with multiple LEDs, and it is actually really difficult to capture the difference. I'm going to show you a clip in a moment, and you will see a difference when we're doing a front-on camera view, but the difference is negligible, and that's just because of the way the camera works. It's constantly trying to work out what should the lighting conditions be in terms of exposure for the camera. So those two shots of the light bouncing off of the wall are the most effective way I found of showing the difference. Now, with regards to these two technologies, there are a couple of other important things to highlight. With regards to the incandescent bulb, it is hugely inefficient, and that's because the filament inside, which is normally tungsten, takes quite a time to get up to temperature. That tungsten filament actually needs to get white hot. In fact, it needs to burn. That's the point at which the photons are released from that tungsten element. And in terms of the consumption of that bulb, 90% of the power goes towards getting that tungsten filament white hot and burning, and only 10% is actually used for the process of the tungsten releasing the photons of light, which is almost the complete opposite for an LED. They're much more efficient. Now, there is one other important difference between these two technologies, and that is response time. Now, in a moment, I'm going to put a clip up. I filmed it at 100 frames per second, and I'm going to slow it right down. But in effect, what this means is for that tungsten bulb to start to work, it takes time. Now, when we look at it in our eyes, and I'll put the clip up now so you can see it, you can have a look. If you look very carefully and you keep your eyes wide open, you can in fact notice that the LED indicator on the left-hand side seems to illuminate and start to emit light quicker than that incandescent bulb on the right-hand side. And that's because that tungsten element takes time to heat up, to get white hot, to start to burn, to start to release photons. So let me now show you this footage of the front of the bike, and I'll slow it right down so that you can see what I mean in terms of response time. Now, the LED technology, by comparison, it's not instantaneous, but for all intents and purposes it is. Even at 100 frames per second, I cannot capture this at the point where it's phasing between off and on. As much as I slow the footage down, it's either off or it's on. It's very, very, very quick indeed. So in a moment, I'm going to show you exactly how to install these on your motorbike, and I'll take you through step by step. But first, a little bit about the products, because Weiser-Technik do in fact make 3 different products for this older generation of BMW, and I'll talk about the models in a moment and give you the years. But first, what we've installed today, this is called Legacy 1 single function, and it's called single function because we're only just upgrading one function, which is the indicators. Now, on the Weiser-Technik website, they've got a very easy system. You put in the brand of your bike, the model, the year, and then it will tell you exactly what kits are available. You can buy them as a single kit, so you get one box with 2 PCBs and 2 locking pins, so you could do your front or your rear, or in fact you can buy a combination kit with 4 PCBs, 4 locking pins that does the whole bike. Just bear in mind, I just repeat this one more time, what we've done today is the Legacy 1 single function. Now, the next step up in the Weiser-Technik range is still called Legacy 1, but on the front of the bike, it's called Legacy 1 dual function, because we're going to be adding 2 functions to the front of the bike. We're going to be adding running lights, which are white, and indicators, and on the rear of the bike they're called Legacy 1, but they're triple function, and we are going to have on the rear of the bike indicators, brake lights and tail lights, all in one very clever PCB with super bright LEDs. So I'm going to cover that next in the next video, but there is in fact one more product which I'll do as a 3rd video. Now, this product is the Evo Extreme indicator kit, and up there on the left hand side, or on your right hand side, you'll find a link to an installation guide that I made for my R1200GS from the year 2021, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking the Evo Extreme kits. Now, the kits were originally developed for the 2013 onwards motorbikes, but you're going to see, as I'm going to show you in the 3rd video in this series, with one simple modification, we can actually take that kit, which has complete new housings and lenses, and install it on these older motorbikes. And it is really easy to do, but we got one modification to make them fit. So in a moment, I'll show you the installation of these, how easy these are to do. Weiser have a 4-year warranty on all of their products, which is quite amazing these days. Most manufacturers only give you a year or 2, but you get 4 with Weiser-Technik. And one of the questions I got asked quite often with that video up there was, are these PCBs, these ones here, waterproof? So I'll put some pictures up of these things running in a full glass of water. So to answer your question, yes, they're going to be fine in your housings. So let me show you how easy these are to fit. So now we get on to installing the Weiser-Technik PCBs. How easy is it to do? Well, as I mentioned earlier on, it took me just 7 minutes to go around the whole bike and do all 4 corners. But I think if you set aside 15 minutes, if you've never done this sort of thing before, you're going to have plenty of time. And the only tools you need are going to be a flat blade screwdriver and a Phillips screwdriver. So let me explain what you need to do, and I'll put some close-up pictures up so that you can see exactly what parts and in which order to remove them. So the first thing you need to remove is the outer lens. That's held in place by 1 Phillips screw. So take the lens off, then you're going to find the reflector unit inside with the bulb. Now it's mounted this way. I've done the one on your right-hand side. You're going to take your flat blade screwdriver and you're going to go in on this inside corner and just lift that reflector out about 1 centimetre, and then the whole assembly will come out. And then on the back you're going to find 2 connections. So you just disconnect both of those cables. There's a blue one and a brown one. I'll explain how to reconnect it later on. So then you can take the reflector off. Now, if you've ever done this sort of thing before, you'll then notice, or you'll know, that the BMW indicator housing is in fact 2 separate parts. And the only thing that holds these 2 parts together is in fact the reflector that you've just removed. And when you go to replace, or perhaps you've replaced the reflector in the past, it actually clips in because there's a U-shaped prong on the end here, and that clips inside like that. You push it in firmly, and then both of these parts are held firmly together. So obviously with the kit, we need to replace it because we're removing that from the bike. So in the Weiser-Technik kit, you're going to find your PCB with your 12 ultra bright LEDs, and you're also going to find one of these. Now this is a locking pin. I'll do some close-ups. There's a narrow end and a wide end. The narrow end actually goes inwards towards the housing, and that clips into the place where the reflector used to go, and it clips in and it holds those 2 parts together. But a couple of things to point out. On the wide end, there are in fact 2 cutouts on the outside edge, and what they're going to do with the PCB, we've got these 2 prongs sticking out, and so once you put the locking pin in, the PCB actually slides into those 2 holes, and it keeps the PCB in place. Now before we do this, we need to connect the wires. Now on the back of the printed circuit board, it's very, very clearly marked. There's a positive and a negative. You're going to take the brown wire, which is the ground, and add it to the minus sign. You're going to take the blue wire, which is the live, and add it to the plus sign, which is the positive feed. And then once you've got your wires connected, you then put the locking pin, narrow end in first, like so. You're going to take the PCB and you're going to work in at an angle. You actually have to put this end in first, and I'll put some close-ups, and then that just locates onto those 2 pins, and then you push firmly inwards towards the inside of the bike, and then you push firmly and the whole PCB assembly clips into place. And then it is just a case of refitting your outer lens with your Phillips screw. So the whole job is in fact really easy. The PCBs are CANbus compatible. It doesn't create any errors or any error messages on your motorbike, and it is a simple plug and play with just 2 tools, a Phillips screwdriver and a flat blade screwdriver. Anyway, let's move on. So I hope from today's video you can see just how easy it is to install these Weiser-Technik PCBs and get a really significant improvement in visibility, which ultimately leads to safety. And as you've just seen, they are incredibly easy to fit. Now before I finish, I just want to mention a couple of extra things. So what we've talked about in this video have been the early generation bikes from around 2004 to about 2014. This type of housing and lens was fitted to a whole range of BMW bikes, and I'll put that list up here on your left hand side. Now there was one other indicator that you might actually have fitted to your bike, and it depends on your location. Now this was BMW's first attempt at an LED indicator, and inside this sealed unit there are in fact 2 LEDs, just 2, as opposed to what Weiser-Technik use, which are 12. Now, when a bike is manufactured brand new, it has to have approval, and the Department of Transport didn't pass approval for this indicator in all geographical locations. So, for example, in North America, this wasn't an option on your motorbikes. There were a couple of months where BMW did offer that as an optional extra, so you could go back to your dealer and have those indicators fitted, but eventually that was removed from the market as well. So for North America, you're probably not going to find very many of those options. Now, if you do, what we're going to cover in the very last episode in this little mini series, you might want to have a look at, because that might be very interesting if you do have these, perhaps if you're in Europe or the United Kingdom, where we are going to be replacing completely the housings, the two parts, the part that bolts to the bike, the main housing itself, and then that outer lens. And what we're going to be fitting is Weiser-Technik's Evo Extreme kits, which come with everything you need. You physically replace the complete indicator, front and rear, and that will be in the third episode. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed today. In the video description below, you'll find links to all the products. There'll be the single function, which is what we've covered today. There'll also be the dual function and the triple function, which retain these original housings, which is what we're going to cover in the very next video. And of course, there'll be the Evo Extreme. If you've got any questions, of course, let me know. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Carl, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.